Well, everybody, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. Always heavy on the sports here on this podcast network and this channel, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So thank you for joining us for this live stream. If you are watching this live, we appreciate you being here for this actual part of it. But even if you're watching on the replay, we appreciate you stopping in and saying hello, leaving a comment about what we're talking about today, and just hanging out with us for a few minutes of your time, because I know that your time is oh so precious and oh so busy. As you do come into the stream, even on the replay, please do post where you're watching from, your city, your state, international, if you're overseas as well, with a War Eagle, just to let me know who is here and who is watching, who's hanging out. On today's live stream, the main topic I have prepared to talk about is the rumored, maybe somewhat confirmed, discussions about a 12-team playoff that may be coming to college football and how that's going to affect Auburn football, obviously. So I thought that'd be a fun discussion to kind of have and bounce around with each other today, get you all's impressions on it. But as with most of our live streams, we can talk about anything. So we might bounce around to a few other things as people feel like they want to talk about them. So don't be shy. Post all that stuff in the chat window, even if it's on the replay. But before we get started today, I want to make sure I always share the information with you that we have, that you can help support the content that we do here. The easiest way to do so is by listening to our podcast, or even being here and listening and hanging out with us on these YouTube videos, liking those videos, all that kind of stuff. Any of those general things that cost you nothing that you can do to help, whether it be liking, commenting, sharing, that's always very much appreciated. There's the Booster Club pinned at the top of the chat window. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. Believe it or not, the $1 level gets you a lot. So come check that out if you'd like to see what's going on there in terms of what you can get and things of that nature for that. There's also PayPal and TeePublic, other ways that you can help support that. All those links are in the description, so you can find it that way. Say hello to a familiar face already popped in the chat. Joe Rudolph is a member of the Booster Club. Thank you, Joe, for helping support this content here. We appreciate you helping keep the lights going here. As you see, the lights behind me are a little bit dim. Doing something a little bit different today. I'm kind of playing around with some things here. In fact, I'm kind of altering my light a little bit as we go on here. Just toying with some ideas and things like that. If it looks better or not. You can even see there's a little bit of a glare behind me from my outside windows. Just trying to make the overall experience better for you. So you like it? No, you know we got a new microphone, obviously. Most people seem to enjoy that. If you don't like the lighting setup, let me know, and we'll see what we can do to fix that. Just toying around with some things. All right, so as you're coming in, smash that like button. Let people know that we're here, that we're live, so they can join in the conversation. It's always more fun when we have all of you to talk about. And Joe is calling in from Jackson, Tennessee. Tennessee represented today, and he says, War Eagle. War Eagle to you, my friend. All right, college football playoff. Thoughts, reactions, 12 teams. Yes, no, stupid idea. It's a good idea, but not 12 teams. You know, I think there's a lot of different ways that you can tackle this subject. And I think there's not a right, well, I shouldn't say there's not a right answer. There's probably a right answer. I don't know that I'm actually the one to, have all that. Is this true GA champion that has changed his name to true Auburn champion? Is that what's happened here? Let me know. Bigger playoffs mean more games, which means the highest and deepest recruiting teams. It will help and hurt those that do not recruit in the top 5. Formerly true. GA. There we go. We changed it over. I like it. Nothing wrong with the last handle and avatar that you had there, but that looks much better. Love that little design of the AU logo too. All right, so what he proposed there is expanding the playoffs will obviously make some things better, but hurt others. There's pretty much nothing in life that doesn't have a cause and effect one way or the other for a particular person or a particular group of people or community or something like that. So yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly that any change right now, teams that maybe are deserving to be in the playoffs often get left out. So that's who it's hurting now. So if you alter the playoffs to include more teams so that those people aren't hurt, you're ultimately down the line going to hurt someone else. In essence, right now, you're hurting Alabama by giving them more games to play, more competition, more opportunities to lose a game in the playoffs because they don't tend to lose them in the regular season right now, which is very unfortunate, very frustrating for us as Auburn fans. So with every decision, yes, there is opposite good and bad reactions to all of that. So I'm not saying one way or the other. I've long thought that we should have done more than 4 teams to start off with, but I was just happy to get a college football playoff that had a college football playoff at all, like literally more than 2 teams. I think it was the case was there and had been made for a long time that ever since Auburn was left out of the 2004 national title game, shouldn't have been, that this is something that needed to happen for a long time. Question always was how many teams and how do you do it? How do you pull it off with the bowl system and stuff like that? Remember, money is everything. Business is everything. So they've got to make financial sense. Now, when you look at it on the surface, expanding it means more games, more advertising dollars, more chances to sell tickets. So it makes sense over time, right? At least we think it does. But sometimes getting people that are spending the dollars to actually spend the money is a little bit challenging at times. But here we are expanding. So reportedly, if I could speak, the committee for college football that decides, how they rank them, who they're seeing, or who they think should be in there. There have been discussions about not an 8-team playoff, not a 6-team playoff, not a 12-team playoff. 12 teams. I don't know how I feel about 12 teams. I wanted more. I would have been very satisfied with 8 teams because I think that's 3 weeks of glorious college football action at the end of the year that was very much needed. And you basically get that anyway with the bowl season, and you can still have a bowl season. I think including 12 teams in it might be a bit of a step out, in my opinion. But what do you guys think? 12, yes, no? What do you think? As we like to, sometimes people want to bring up other conversation pieces here. We'll kind of bounce over to this real quick. Do you think Desi's the reason why we didn't get Trey? And did he basically come and take him and then then leave? I'm not really sure exactly the way you're phrasing that, but yeah, I think obviously I don't think it was necessarily Desi that made Trey Alexander leave. I do think that had an effect on it. Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like a bad decision now, doesn't it? But hey, we don't know what all is going on behind the scenes. I think, honestly, if you're going to be swayed to leave simply because some extra competition came in, that should tell you something about all that. So just want to answer that real quickly. I like the idea of a playoff game on a home field. That I do like. That is a very good point. Having... that was the big question. Is like, if you do these playoffs, where are you going to have them? Because all these other places are having these bowl games and stuff like that on campus, right? That makes perfect sense. It would be a great, revenue boost for some of these small college towns that lose their student body in the off time between semesters. So people can come back and see that. I think any given Saturday, we can defeat any team. A lot of times we just need a chance. I honestly cannot care less about bowl games. Jihan, look, there are some years where bowl games are just awful, but there are some years where it's great. I actually love bowl season because it's as close as a feeling as I get to March Madness, even though they're not playing each other in a playoff. It's just 2 games and it's 2 teams and it's done for each bowl game. It kind of gives me that feeling. So I don't mind bowl season. I just think there's a ways to do it better and make it more meaningful overall. Let's see. Explain it. 12 teams, so like 6 games in the playoffs, round 1 then. So the way it would be set up in theory is what people, I think the report was saying, is that you would have, of the 6 major conferences, major being the operative term there, SEC, ACC, Big 12, Big 10, Pac-12, and then the American, if you can include them. And then you would have the 6 best at-large teams. So in essence, it would take the conference champions, but then it would allow some of these teams that continue to get left out of the Power 5 to come in, have an opportunity to compete. That part it fixes, I love, because that should have been happening already. However, Not so big on the at-large bids, and I'll explain why in a little bit. John's also a Booster Club member. Thank you, John, for being here and also supporting in the Booster Club. Appreciate you doing that, sir. Thank you so much. Let's see. I believe 12 is too many. 8 is just right. I believe it can hurt the players more than anything, but probably good for the fans unless you're Auburn in 2017 with Kerryon Johnson. 12, yeah, I think if you want to expand, I think you need to do it. And if you're, it's so oxymoronic because when they went into the playoffs, they were like, we're going to do this as basic as possible. Nobody, we're not going to do a major expansion of this. We're just going to go in as small as possible can. And then all of a sudden, boom, 12. Too much, too fast, in my opinion. If Auburn has a playoff game at their stadium, there would be create multiple earthquakes. Yes, they would. Gus is so happy right now. Yes, he is. At risk of making people upset because I have the audacity to speak kindly about Gus Malzahn, the one who continues to get out of this smelling like roses out of the divorce of Auburn and Gus Malzahn is Gus Malzahn. And that's not to say that things aren't going well with Coach Harsin, the football team. I think they are. But you want to talk about transitioning over to a situation with some expectations, but nowhere near Auburn and SEC expectations, where you're already set up for success, and now you get the potential very soon to automatically be considered for the playoff. That's pretty good in my eyes. It's just funny. Same 12 teams will be in every year. Also, with the name change and likeness, they are destroying college football. Well, old geezer. I think it's funny that's your, I think a lot of people will say that's an old geezer type of comment. I'm not saying that you are, but I can already see the comments after the video here. So I am a traditionalist. Those of you that have been watching this YouTube channel for a long time will know that about me. I don't like change. I like things to stay the same. I do recognize, though, that things have to change, and I want it to be done slowly, which is why I'm not necessarily okay with a 4-12, but I'm good. I'm glad they're at least expanding. I don't think the playoff itself will destroy college football. I think it'll actually the expanding that. I think it'll help it. But the best way to do it is, I think, to rearrange the structure of college football as is right now, and that's not being done yet. And I think if they do this 12-team format, they'll never get to that point. That's what I'm a little bit concerned about. Now, the image and likeness situation, yes, that is stepping into some waters that is going to get dangerous for college football. It's the old adage of once you open Pandora's box, you can't put it back. And so it's been opened, and that's going to present new problems and how they're going to respond to that. And at what point does college football become amateur football for the NFL? It pretty much amateur is not the right phrase. The minor leagues for NFL, and it will be happening at some point the rate we're going. But I wouldn't get too drastic to say it's destroying it, but it is losing some of what made college football great if they continue to speed things up in these areas that they're doing. The new overtime rules will destroy college football. I don't think there's anything that's been proposed that's going to destroy college football. Do I think that'll make it different from what it was? Yes. And that's me as a traditionalist saying this, so just remember that. By the way, I see we got a good crowd in here. If you are enjoying this type of content, please do let me know by smashing that like button. I see a lot of our regulars here too, so I know that you're seeing a little bit different lighting and stuff like that. Let me know if you like the lighting or not. Does it look better? Does it look worse? Trying to alter things around for you guys a little bit. So that's kind of where we're at. 12-team playoff. Is it a good thing? I think it is a good thing, but I don't agree with the way it's being done. I think personally, the best way and a lot of you will have heard me say this before on this channel, the best thing they could do for college football is to make everybody who wants to be part of the playoff join 8 conferences. 8. We get rid of all these extra conferences that don't ever, even involve in the conversation. I think you could probably bring the MAC. You could probably bring the Mountain West into the conversation, and that's it. Maybe Conference USA, I guess, is probably if you could combine some of those, and you make everybody who wants to be a part of the playoff be part of these 8 conferences. You make the champions, you make them have a championship game, because there's an extra game right there already. More football, big money. The champions are the only ones that go. The argument on the other side of that equation is, but then you're going to have teams like from the SEC that maybe deserve a shot at be left out. I hear you, but if you really want to talk about fairness and giving everybody equal opportunity to prove themselves and not be left out, but just because an SEC team might look better on paper than the Conference USA champion, that's how you fix it. You make 8 teams. This is it. You win your conference, because that means that you are the best of your conference. You are the best representative. And that it shouldn't matter at that point if Auburn was, looked better on paper than the Conference USA team if Alabama beat them and went on to the conference championship game and then won and stuff like that. So that's how you fix this. Conference champions, 18 playoff, done, over with. And you can have those conferences be as big as you want. I'm all for that. But I think that's what would have to happen. Otherwise, it's going to get a little crazy. Anybody else? Thoughts? Derogatory rebuttal about the concept of a 12-team playoff, or your overall thoughts of... actually, hold on one second. I got somebody beeping in here. Don't want to make sure it doesn't interfere with us on the show. Sometimes it'll click up there on my screen and kind of try to talk to me. But yeah, 12-team playoff, I think, it's a little excessive. Now, the good thing is that it is now going to give a champion from each of those 6 conferences, which are always in the conversation. That 6th conference being the American, kind of, sort of. But I think it's going to allow them to actually have a shot at making it, and it'll eliminate a lot of the whining and the complaining and the speculating. Oh, UCF was supposed to be the national champions, all that kind of stuff. Look, I love everybody giving Alabama grief as much as anybody, and the fact that they claimed that national championship the same year Alabama won, that brings me a little bit of joy at our hands, nonetheless. Yeah, I just think that 12 teams might be just a little bit too much. And to who said the 12 teams, I think it was Old Geezer said it, every year will be represented. I disagree. Will the top half be the same every year? Yeah, because those conference champions. So you're going to see out for a while. You'll see Alabama. You'll see Clemson. You'll see probably an Ohio State. Maybe every once in a blue moon, a Michigan. Well, not a Michigan, but a Wisconsin maybe might shock the world and get in there. You'll see a Oregon and maybe a Washington get in there. You'll see an Oklahoma or a Texas. Nah, not even a Texas right now. So you're going to have some of those mainstays here. But the thing is, I think that's great, is if you go back and look over the years, that 12 spots, it gets a little bit variable in there. I mean, you can go back and look at some of the years that Auburn might have been a factor in it. And there was like South Carolina involved in there. How often does South Carolina get mentioned in the conversation for the playoffs? Never. That would have been interesting. And they've had some decent teams in recent history. Not lately, but recent history. So I'm in favor of expanding it, just not this format, to me. And so the way it also would work, my understanding is that you have the 8 teams. You have the 4 best teams by the rankings would have a bye. The last 8 teams would play in the first round. Those 4 move on, and then you'd have a traditional 8 for 2 for a championship game. Anybody else think of any other way to make this work, make this better? Do we not need a championship game? Lord knows we don't need to go back to that system. I think 6 could be enough based off the information I've heard from the first 4 getting a bye. 5 to 12 playing in the first round. Let's see. Based off the information I've heard. So are you saying, Joe, that 6 teams would be enough? And then is that a separate comment with the 4 getting the bye? Just talking about what we were talking about, the whole with the structure of the all. The thing with this is no matter how far you back up and add teams to a playoff, there will always be arguments and conversations about, well, so and so got left out and they deserve to be there. I think once you get outside the top 10, that conversation really isn't valid. Personally, I don't think it's valid. So I think that's part of the reason that the 12 is a little bit much for me, is I think we're outside the top 10, but I guess that leaves a little bit of room for error in the off chance that, and it's not designed to just put the top 10 in. It's supposed to, you could be Missouri and shock the world. That was 9-3 maybe out of the East of the SEC. Go to the championship game against a undefeated Auburn, Alabama, or LSU, beat them, and shock the world, and you're the champion, and you were only ranked in the top 20. So that could be, a possibility that happens here. And that's where the room for error is. Come the at-large bid as part of the, if that situation happens, well, it still gets that really good team that looked like it on paper into the playoffs. Russell, bring back the BCS. BCS did Auburn dirty. I say no. That's just me, though. Since I've heard the top 4 seeds will have a bye anyway. Yeah, I think we're on the same page there, Joe. I think a 64-team playoff would make everyone happy. Of course. I mean, why not just go for broke at this point? Let's just do it all. 64 teams. I know that's not all the 120-something teams that are in the league, but that's half. We get half of everybody in there. There's no arguments. Why don't we just do everybody? Why don't we start from week 1 and you just seed with somebody based off of last year's rankings and then just start playing everybody down? A couple teams get a bye in the first round. That's the college football season. Yeah, we will not see 64 teams unless they did something like that. But it's funny, Unbeaten Lake. It is funny to think about that. Can't function the same way that basketball or baseball, softball do in the way that they have competition. Or even, tennis does that a lot. I think golf does that a lot too. Those are team and individual sports. That's a little bit different. But, I fully agree that the playoff needs to expand because we are getting the same basic teams every year. And there's a lack of competition, it seems like, a lot of the time. I think expanding to include some more teams allows a little bit more variables, a little bit more variance to what could possibly happen, making things a little bit more interesting. And if you think for a second that first round games on home fields won't draw a crowd, you're crazy. That would be outstanding. Look, it wouldn't even have to be at Auburn's. You think that people wouldn't get stoked for a first round game of Oklahoma versus Memphis? Can you imagine how many people are going to travel from Tennessee to Texas to Oklahoma? That's going to draw a huge crowd. Now you're going to get in the situations where you have Oregon versus Georgia, and if it's in Georgia, you're not going to get a ton of Oregon fans, but they travel well, which is shocking. Definitely joking about the BCS. Whew. That was a close one there. Extremely small baby step in the right direction that caused a few migraines along the way. A few migraines? Did you forget the migraine of 2004 that I'm still feeling effects of? Look, we can always say Auburn's the reason that they started this conversation, so we can take that with a grain of salt. Do you think this forces Notre Dame to join the ACC? No, because if there's large teams, they're in. At the rate they go, unless they have a very bad year, Notre Dame's in. So this ensures their opportunities to be there. It also ensures that Notre Dame doesn't take a spot from a conference champion. So what happens in a situation where you've got in the top 5, I'm just going to speculate here based off of recent history. I know this is an Auburn YouTube channel, but just run with me here. Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, let's say, and Ohio State. And then Notre Dame sitting there undefeated, but everybody else has one loss. You going to leave Notre Dame out? They don't play a super hard schedule, but they play a decent schedule. And they went undefeated. And they have a pretty decent amount of good teams on there every year. You going to leave them out? You can't. Do they belly flop every single year? Yes. But you can't leave them out because they're undefeated. So that still allows for Notre Dame to still be at large. And part of the reason we're not seeing the requirement being conference only, champions only, is because of Notre Dame's, because of the BYU's, because of, I think it's either Army or Navy or one of them that's not part of a conference right now. Air Force? One of them. But really it's those two teams, Notre Dame and BYU. The ones that are private religious institutions. Are they private? I'm not sure. A lot of 9-3 Auburn jokes on the Twitter the other day. There's a lot of Auburn jokes on the Twitters every day. But yes, I did see those running around there. So do you think we should do the conference championship? Wait. Do you think we should do the conference championship game should be the top two teams of their conference no matter what division? No. I think whatever... Well, okay, let me back that up. If that's what the conference decides to do, that's fine. I don't care how they do it. As long as you take the two teams and play for a conference championship, that's who your champion is. I don't care how it happened. So when we ask these questions, and I'm not picking on you, Joe, but just because you asked the question, we're often assuming we're taking those small instances where, the second best team is being left out in the case of the SEC from, let's say, the West in lieu of the champion from the East. That doesn't happen super often. Does it happen every 2 out of 10 times? Yes, it does. But that's not super often. That's 20% of the time. And more often than not, you're still going to see the top team win anyway, the best team. So I don't know. I guess if the conference wants to do that, that's fine. But I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. Just my opinion, though. All right, keep comments, questions going. We're not leaving right now, but I just wanted to kind of go ahead and get this part done at the end of the show. If you haven't, please do consider helping support what we do here and on our podcast network. Easiest thing to do is to do what you're doing now. Just be a part of the shows, watch, listen, smash that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And if you're not subscribed on Apple Podcast or Spotify, please do so. And leave a review if you're an Apple Podcast subscriber. I cannot stress that enough. That is the best thing that you can do for us to help others find us and grow our little family within the Auburn family. There's also the Booster Club pinned at the top of the chat window. But all these links are available in the description if you want to check them out. PayPal for one-time donations because it does cost money to do what we do here. Ever-changing network. We appreciate those that do that, like John and Joe that have been in here that are part of the Booster Club. It's not required of you guys, but we are very appreciative that you would be willing to do that for us. And smash the like button here on this video if you've enjoyed this content today. So, kind of wrapping up our thoughts and our discussion of this today. If you want to bring up anything else about the Auburn discussion forum, we can talk about that as well. I just kind of wanted to, as we start closing out our time today, talk a little bit about that. Auburn Dad for Life, what's going on? Hello, peeps. I don't know if we've seen you here before. If we have, I'm sorry. We've met a lot of people over the time, but we're kind of wrapping up our time here. So if you got thoughts about a 12-team playoff, get them in right now. Let's hear about them. Let's see. The comeback. Yes, comeback was a great game. What a great game. Okay. And I don't know how to say that title there, but we've got someone talking about football, not football here. Chad, the SEC needs to move to playing 3 annual conference opponents and rotate the other 5 biannually. 3 annual conference opponents. So, Chad, let me see if I'm understanding this correctly. I'm trying to see if you're talking about playing the 3 annual conference opponents. Okay. So you would play these 3 teams. It's kind of like basketball, right? They have 3 opponents they play twice, and then they rotate everybody else where they play, how often they play them. It's not the same as basketball, but you kind of get the drift of how the basketball thing's set up. For Auburn, it's goodness, Kyle. Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss, I believe. Or maybe it's Georgia. Maybe it is Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss, I think. So, yes, that might be a way to kind of help spice up the SEC a little bit, spread the love around. The easiest way to fix the SEC is to get Alabama off their you-know-what and stop whining and making believe about how Tennessee's a rivalry and let us move to the East so we can be their cross-divisional rival, be with our traditional rivalries that we have, but still have them as ours. Allow Missouri to go back to the East. The West, excuse me. Go to the West. That's how you fix all of this stuff. But I digress. Sorry, I thought I heard a noise behind me. I was like, what is that going on over there? You've been here for just not talking between 8 teams. It should be 12 too many. Between 8 teams, it should be, I guess you're saying 12 is too many. It should be 8 teams. It's the way it seems like it's phrased there. Russell, talking about his potential lineup. We did a live stream recently. We kind of just talked through this a little bit. 2012 lineup. You've got, or this was your hypothetical, what could have been, yes. Now, I saw some names and I was like, you do realize they're gone now. Yes, this could have been, what might have been. It would have been a great story, but the reality is that all those people weren't going to be there at the same time anyway. Ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all be a Merry Christmas. But what it does show you is how great Bruce Pearl has been at acquiring talent, developing talent, and keeping, at least getting them to come here and work together. But yeah. 8 teams instead of 12. Okay, got that. I know sometimes, I don't know if you're watching on your phone or on the computer or whatever, but sometimes that phone typing, when you're trying to type fast, gets crazy on there. I think we're taking a step too forward with the expansion. I'd like to see 8. I think that would get everybody happy out of this discussion. It would probably include the one team that always gets left out from the smaller conference. But we'll see what happens. Here's the point of all this. As long as we get an expansion, I'm ultimately not going to complain that much. I will always complain a little bit, but not that much. Trading home and home series with Eastern opponents shouldn't take 12 to 13 years to complete. Auburn won't go back to Gainesville till 2031. I know, which is why I made such a big deal about going to Florida 2 seasons ago, because it would be another decade before I get the opportunity to do it again. Glad I did. Hated the outcome. It was a good experience, though, for the most part. The in-stadium experience for Gainesville, incredible. The swamp, the walking into the stadium and into the bowels of it to get up to the seats, terrible. One of the worst situated stadiums ever. Ever. And I've been to a few of them. Even Florida fans will echo that. They said they hate it. I mean, it's just awful down there, and it collects water at the bottom and stuff like that. It's literally the swamp. In the bowl, though, phenomenal experience. No Auburn, still good though. But yes, let's see. Oh, that was a repeat comment there. So yeah, in summary of our main discussion point today, 12 teams, happy for an expansion. Hopefully they'll kind of whittle that down and realize maybe 8's the thing to go with, and then talk about expanding later. Because I'd hate for them to go too fast, too soon, and then regret it and things not work. You can always add more, but to take things away, once you open Pandora's box, like I said earlier, it's hard to put it back in. Russell, with the playoff setup, we should potentially play Georgia 3 times in 2017, which would have been fun, right? Because they would have beaten us that second time, right? And then that third time, we could have really, truly decided who is the best team. And Carry On probably still would have been hurt at that point, but I think we would have been more prepared for that, after that point. Anyway, a lot of speculation that can happen. As a reminder, please do follow us, our podcast network. We're thinking about doing a series breaking down our thoughts about the playoff, 12-team playoff, but we might do a series going back and looking some of the teams, if they were in a 12-team playoff, who they might have played and how they might have fared. So something to look forward to. A lot of podcasts coming out this week. Potentially an Auburn Roots. I'm still trying to get that scheduled. another No Huddle to break it down some Auburn football news. And we've got a special, unique podcast about Auburn and Minecraft. Yes, you heard me right. The video game Minecraft. There's some guys out there who are Auburn grads that are creating a virtual Auburn via Minecraft. You don't want to miss that. It's a pretty cool story. So we'll be having that on the podcast network this week. Subscribe, hit that notification bell on your way out, and the like button. And we'll talk to you guys very soon. War Eagle.